Welcome to Yelling Into the Void, a podcast discussing and exploring topics in World of Warcraft. I'm Tevin, joined as always by Scott, and I just gotta say, Scott, it feels super good to be right, and we were right a lot last week.
Oh my god, I'm just patting the shit out of my back right now, man. I'm just so proud of just myself, nobody else, just me.
Just you, not me at all.
Oh no, you said there was going to be an Arathi raid, man. You were way off.
Okay. But what about Zealotep being our friend?
Yeah,
That was my call.
yeah. No, you're right. You're right. Pat yourself. Give yourself a back pat. There you go.
But anyways,
is that a spoiler? Should we have spoiler warned that? Who cares? Nobody. Does anyone listening to this podcast care about the story of World of Warcraft?
Well, if they do, and you want to leave angry comments about me saying that in the opening, I'm sorry. Please do so, though.
Yeah, angry comments are actually extremely good for engagement, so please go ahead.
But Season 3 has been announced. As you guys can tell, we didn't start the podcast off by saying, and there's nothing to talk about for 2 months in a row now. So,
wow, that was too much to talk about. Holy shit.
So there's a decent amount. I'm just going to kind of rapid fire off like key talking points, and then we'll actually dive into it. And whatever we don't get through today, we will get through next week. Because I can almost assure you we are not going to get through the entirety of everything that was announced last week.
Not with that attitude.
So. But there's been a decent amount of changes around Mythic Plus. There's been some updates to the system, just kind of minor tweaks, I would say. And then there's a nice dungeon rotation actually this time around. Like, I think this might be the first time ever where I've seen the dungeon rotation and I've actually been excited for pretty much every dungeon. But there's a little bit of a weird caveat with that, and we'll get into that later. Yeah, going into Season 3, we're going to have a new zone. We'll be in Koresh, and that's going to be a lot like Undermine was. To be determined, I think, if it's going to be like a full-on area that we're going to be hanging out in that's going to, quote-unquote, replace Dornegal or not. I have a feeling Dornegal will still be the central hub, and we'll just have a portal to Koresh, though. But I think Tazavesh is going to be like kind of the new hub-ish area.
Yeah.
Or at least a Tazavesh-like city.
It'll be the hub of the zone in the same way that, like, the Incontinental Hotel is the hub of Undermine. Like, yeah, I think we're going to live in Dornegal, essentially, but it will be the hub of the zone, essentially.
Gotcha. So all of that, Tazavesh is just the new Dalaran, but again, we'll cover that later. The new raid has a lot of cool things going on. First and foremost, there's like void-themed demon hunters in this raid, which is awesome. And I don't know, maybe a third demon hunter spec would be coming soon. That would be pretty cool. But there's also some weirdness going on with this raid, in that there are quote-unquote optional bosses or an optional boss. So again, go into more detail on that later. But I think the last thing news-wise with the new patch that's coming out is we're getting another annulet item, which is going to be a cloak. And I'm unsure if this is going to be more like an amulet or a circlet or this disc belt, or if it's going to be kind of more akin to like the legendary cloaks of the past. But instead of having like an infinite grind, you just have like a weekly upgrade to your cape.
Well, Tevin, you should listen to this podcast because I have the answers for you.
Oh, well, there you go. Scott has all the information about the cape that I clearly didn't read enough about. And then I think that the other like news that isn't necessarily new shit is we're going to be able to gear in week 1, which is a change from what we've had in the past and a welcome change at that. And then there's some class balancing and reworks that are happening with this patch as well. And I'm unsure, did they say if it's coming out with this patch or if it is coming out like in the 0.5 and 0.7 patches like they've done reworks in the past?
I believe everything that we're going to be talking about today is in the PTR right now. So all the balancing and reworks are going live with the next season with Ghosts of Koresh, which is the cool name of this patch.
So that took us about 5 minutes to go over all of the stuff that they announced. So if that doesn't get you excited for season 3, I don't know what does, but I think we should just dive in, Scott. I've been talking and not really letting you say anything for the last 5 minutes. So let's start off with dungeon rotations. And
Well, can I
I
just
just want to say this is awesome.
can I just get your like overall reaction before we dive into the details? Like, what's your overall reaction about the announcement? Like, are you vibing with this? Were you like, nah, not my scene? Like, how do you feel about Ghosts of Koresh 11.2?
I'm very excited. The only downside that I have about this, really, is I feel like we're getting back into the realm that we did in Shadowlands, where it's like we're going to be going to the zone and it's just going to be all purple. Like purple and blue.
Yeah, very
Uh,
possible. I mean, like I think it's kind of by design very Nether Storm y, which was a lot of purple, but I also think like they're taking full advantage of these echo domes, which have a lot of plant life in to give a little variation and variable nature to the thing. I totally understand that concern, but I'm pretty hyped about this. I do think it's a little weird, I guess, that like this was in my head the expansion where we just keep diving deeper and deeper into the planet as we get closer and closer to the heart of Azeroth. And now we're just kind of going to another planet. Like we're just gonna hop in a portal and go somewhere else. It is like with Undermine the way they did it, and then now this just leaving Azeroth entirely. It doesn't feel like we've continued to delve deeper in Azeroth throughout the course of the expansion. It just feels like I thought Undermine was really cool, but because of doing the drive system and no flying and stuff, they had to isolate that zone, and it's like you can't fly to it. And I think that took away something ultimately. And then with this, we're not going any deeper, which we probably will in the future expansions. I think I'm very excited about this expansion. I'm very excited about the theming. I'm very excited about the look. I'm excited about all of it. But it is a little interesting because we are kind of in uncharted territory here where the game has never done this kind of 3 expansion arc thing before. And so I just feel like there's a lot of things that if this expansion was the end of a storyline, as all the other ones have been, it maybe would have played out differently. But there's a lot more dangling threads that we have in this expansion that I don't think are going to be resolved because they're going to be picked up in Midnight and then in the Last Titan. But that just, it's a little weird. Like I'm super excited about it, but from a storytelling perspective, it's a little weird.
Yeah, so when the announcement happened, I was going through and I was reading everything. So I'm very excited. Like I don't want anything that I'm saying today to make it seem like I am not. I am very excited about the raid and all of the things that are coming up with this expansion. I think pretty much everything that was announced. I don't think I've read anything that I would consider annoying or bad or a downer yet. So I'm pretty pumped. I guess that's just my general feeling going into season 3. And I feel like Blizzard normally, like season 3s are where they do fairly well. Like it's normally going in, season 2s are the worst, and they kind of broke that trend with the War Within, I think.
Yeah.
So I'm hopeful that we continue this uptick because normally, season 3s get a little bit better than season 2s, and then they kind of taper off quicker. But since we're already on like an upswing with they did with the turbo boost shit and making dungeons just generally easier, I'm hopeful we kind of just ride this wave higher.
Which complete tangent, complete side note, and this is what makes our podcast 7 hours. But I did see in an interview that they said that the response to Turbo Boost was pretty popular, and they are looking into ways of making this something that they will continue to do going forward. So I think it's fair. I think we guessed that, and I think it's fair to assume that like we will have kind of a mid-season item level bump every season going forward. Which again, I didn't hate it. So I'm fine with that ultimately.
Yeah. It's odd. It's odd because you kind of want to wait to do your big pushing, but it is what it is. I don't think it necessarily took away from the game for us this time, but does that change when we know that it's coming?
It might. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, but part of it certainly was that it was a surprise that we didn't see coming. So yeah, I think that's a good point. So, sorry to distract us. Let's get into the meat. Let's talk about Mythic Plus first, because I think that's where you and I like to hang out the most.
Yeah, it's definitely our bread and butter. So again, to touch on this, dungeon rotation is sick. I think you and I have both agreed that this dungeon rotation is like awesome. There is one weird thing about it though, Scott. Uh, it is all War Within dungeons and Shadowlands dungeons,
Yeah.
which is a little bit weird.
So let's read what the actual rotation is for people that maybe don't know, right?
Sure, sure.
So we have from season 1 of the War Within, we have the Dawnbreaker returning. People loved that dungeon, and it's back. We also have, oh my gosh, what was the other season 1 dungeon? What am I blanking on?
Arakara.
Arakara, thank you. I think that's literally just because of the trinket. So yeah, I mean, important thing to note is that for the returning War Within dungeons, there was a vote amongst the community, and the 4 dungeons that they ultimately picked for season 3 were the 4 dungeons that won the vote. So it seems like they actually paid attention to that, which yikes. But I think for the most part, the community made pretty good choices. I think the returning season 2 dungeons are Priory of the Sacred Flame, which is a difficult dungeon, but one that I really enjoy aesthetically. So I'm not mad at that one coming back. And Operation Floodgate, the new dungeon from season 2, really like that one. Really just great dungeon all around. So happy with that. Our new dungeon is Echo Dome Aldani. That is the brand new dungeon of the season. And then, yeah, as you said, we have 3 Shadowlands dungeons returning. We have both wings of the Tazavesh mega dungeon, which is something that we did not predict. We predicted that we would have one of them. I think we predicted that they would probably definitely have streets, because that is the much more ethereal focused one. And it was my guess that this would be an ethereal season. I was not expecting both of them. And then we also have Halls of Atonement. These are great dungeons. All across the board, I agree with you. These are great dungeons. The Shadowlands piece of it is interesting to me. So I like let's be clear here. I'm excited about the dungeons. I'm excited about Mythic Plus. I'm excited about all of this. What I'm about to say has nothing to do with that. We got 6 Shadowlands dungeons in this expansion, in the War Within. There were almost as many Shadowlands dungeons as there were War Within dungeons in this expansion, which is surprising. Like, there's a lot of dungeons to go back on. There's a lot of content they could have gone back on, but they really, really like heavily returned to the Shadowlands in this expansion. And I like they picked none of the dungeons they picked. I hated. I ultimately did not like Theater of Pain, but I don't know if I would have said that going into the season. And I didn't mind Necrotic Wake or Mists until I saw their revamped War Within versions. So I mean, there's like, if they continue the philosophy of the changes that they made to Dungeons Season 2 with the Shadowland dungeons, I think they're all going to be great, because Halls of Atonement was already a great dungeon. I think any changes and improvements they're going to make to that is just going to make it more fun and better. But yeah, I mean, I feel a little weird that we got so much Shadowlands, and especially in this season. I guess my big surprise was I really thought they were going to do it. I really thought they were going to go back to the Burning Crusade and they were going to make a Mana Tombs dungeon. And they did not do that. So
I almost wonder if they did that, like how much fucking work would go into that, because not only like that dungeon hasn't really been touched since TBC.
Yeah.
And the mobs in there don't have good telegraphing. They don't like, none of the current design is any of the design in that dungeon. So like it would be from the ground up, I think.
It would be, yeah, it would basically, like, the only thing that you would have would be the map. Like that's the map, and I guess some of the art assets, but they would probably have to create so many new assets. Yeah. It would be basically building a fresh dungeon. There's a part of me that thinks that when they sat down in the room to draw up the plan of this season, that Mana Tombs was on the list, that they said, this is what we want to do. We want to do this. This fits aesthetically perfectly. It's a full ethereal dungeon. There's ethereals fucking everywhere. We want to do this. And I think somewhere along the way, it became very clear that was going to be too much work, and they just abandoned it.
Yeah, I agree. And so I do want to talk a little bit about the Shadowlands shit too, like you were bringing up. Like we got 6 Shadowlands dungeons. And in one vein, you and I have always talked about, ever since you heard on I think it was Taliesin's video, that it might just be because they're behind.
Mhm.
Like that's always what we go to. And that's what you and I were talking about the past few days. But brand new cook just thought of it like 2 seconds ago while you were saying this. What if it's because the player base was so low during Shadowlands that they're like, man, these dungeons were actually like well received and nobody played them, and so we want people to experience them.
Yeah. I mean, very possible. I think that is probably someone on the team has that sentiment. I also think, like, let's be honest here, whether they're behind or not, these 3 Shadowlands dungeons are probably some of the easiest dungeons to bring back. And I'm not saying they're
Yeah.
not going to make changes. They're obviously going to make changes. There's been some data mining on some of the changes already. I think I was listening to a podcast, the Bench podcast, that was talking about the data mine changes. It's interesting that as of this recording date, we're recording Monday night on the 23rd, they have not released a post outlining all the data mine dungeon changes, even though they have them, because Squishy was talking about them. I think that's weird. I don't know. Maybe by the time this comes out, they will have released all that. But they were talking about that they've made some changes to Gambit and to Streets and to Halls. The one thing I'm really interested in Halls is how they're going to do the gargoyle charm thing that the Covenant gave you.
Yeah.
That was a huge part of the strategy of that dungeon. And so, like, are they going to just completely take that away? Are they going to unlock it and allow everyone to do it? I really don't know how that's going to work. So we'll see there. So the dungeons are going to have some changes to them for sure. But yeah. If you look at this season, you have 4 War Within dungeons that have already been a Mythic Plus. 2 of them were just from last season, so I would think very minimal changes there, almost none. 2 of them were from season 1, and their design philosophy has shifted a little bit between season 1 and 2. So there's definitely going to have to be some development work that goes into changing those 2 dungeons, but like not like a lot, right?
Yeah.
They have a whole new dungeon, which is brand new. That's a shit ton of work. Don't want to take anything away from them there. They are bringing a brand new dungeon to the season. That's awesome. It's great. I love it. And then you have these 3 Shadowlands dungeons that not only were Mythic Plus dungeons already, but 2 of them were Mythic Plus dungeons twice already. And so, like, I just think, like, while there's going to be work there, it is very much minimizing the amount of development work they have to do in the dungeon pool. Ultimately, like, from my perspective, I don't care if they're good, right?
Yeah.
But like, I guess I just wonder, like, we've now burned 6 of the 10 Shadowland dungeons in one expansion. We've got 4 left, right? And I just wonder, like, what does this mean for what future expansions pools look like? Like, are we going to do the same thing again now? Or like in Midnight, we're going to have 6 Dragonflight dungeons? Like, how do you feel right now about the idea of that in the next 2 years, you're going to do 6 Dragonflight dungeons over again? Because I don't feel great about that, actually.
Well, it depends on what ones they pick, because if they pick like the mega dungeon in Algathar, I'll be okay with that.
Mm-hmm.
But if they go and they pull out like Brackenhide, I'll be a little bit pissed off. I won't lie.
What if it's Halls of Origination and
oh, dude, fuck that place.
Neltharis, whatever.
So I did have one question too. For Streets and for Gambit, these have been Mythic Plus dungeons, and they got like fairly significant changes throughout the course of them being Mythic Plus dungeons.
Yeah.
And they were Mythic Plus dungeons multiple times. What is, I don't know how to word this. What's too frequent to bring these back? Like, if we do it every other season, but it's a dungeon that's super well received, is that a problem?
I don't know. I mean, that's a great question. I mean, like, let's be clear here. Like, I'm not complaining about this because I think getting dungeons that are recycled from 2 expansions ago is infinitely better than running the same 8 dungeons for an entire expansion, right? Like the old method
Yeah.
before they introduced this thing, this is better. In every way, this is better. So like, I'm not complaining about this wonderful world we live in now. But it does definitely seem like their standard now has been officially set, that like, once it's not last expansion, once it's 2 expansions ago, it's fair game, and we're going to pull as many of these in this as we want to. I do think it's interesting that they have kind of, I don't know, maybe you disagree with this, but it seems like they've targeted the 2 expansions ago dungeons to be the ones that people liked more than the ones that people hated. Like they didn't bring Sanguine Depths in here. They didn't bring Spires of Ascension. Like these are like the 2 least popular dungeons in that pool. Probably. I think Plaguefall's pretty popular. I think the other side is not hated. It's just very long.
Yeah.
So like they do seem like they're kind of sort of targeting the more popular ones. I think it's interesting to me how few BFA dungeons have come back into the rotation. Especially like BFI time walking is happening right now. That's a new thing they added with the patch. And so I did 5 BFA time walking dungeons this week, half of which were dungeons I had just never done because I didn't play them. And some of them I was like, man, this is a cool dungeon. I would like to see this again. Like the snake dungeon was pretty cool, actually. I would like to see this come back. I think this is something I thought I would argue about Shadowlands, where like BFA was so negatively received that they're just not going to go back to the well of those dungeons very much. Like they've done a few, right? They had Freehold and they had Siege of Borealis. Is that all? I guess the Mechagons technically count as BFA dungeons. Or they had Underrot, right?
Yeah, Underrot and Waycrest were both BFA.
Waycrest is BFA. Okay, so they have gone a little bit. Just it feels like there's a lot more there, and doesn't seem like they're doing that because they're instead targeting Shadowlands, which is very surprising to me. So, I like ultimately, I like every one of these dungeons. I'm gonna have a lot of fun with this, and I look forward to see exactly how they change things. I look forward to see how they're going to handle fish sticks in 2025. One of the things I know that they specifically talked about changing is the first boss in Gambit, where you have the vault code. And basically the strategy in Mythic Plus has been get a weak aura and then you report what your color is. But they've said that in these kind of Mythic Plus games, they don't want to have like information that requires communication like that. So they're changing that boss to where people don't have to report it. I think it's just going to display. Probably you run over to the thing, it's just going to display, and people will know what to do. But they are changing that, at least for the Mythic Plus only version.
Sure. So the other changes that we've seen, though, we have seen a few. They've been trying to like reduce and remove casts or increase cast times of things.
Yeah.
And this goes like, I think even in Arakara, there were some increased cast times that were announced. So this isn't only dungeons from the past that they're really starting to take a dive at. And I think that's good because the season 2 philosophy was significantly better, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And to the point of like, we had a comment last week that said stops aren't really that bad.
Which is ridiculous, by the way. What is... Explain yourself.
So that's the thing, though. Like, I want the stop change reverted because it's annoying. I don't like it. Yada yada. But in a vein, they're not wrong. Like, we live in a time with Mythic Plus where it's like not that big of a deal if you overlap.
No,
I think there's not a ton of kicks happening.
I think the next best thing to the stop change being reverted is making the dungeons to where that doesn't matter anymore. And that seems to be the way that they're going. Yeah, I agree with you. Like the trend in season 2, they're going back to the season 1 dungeons and fixing those things. Things like the tank busters. Like one of the things they talked about specifically was that we had all these tank busters, but all these tank busters had a cast time. And it was kind of information overload if you're trying to kick things, because you have all these spells that you're not supposed to kick, but they show up as casts anyway. So you see a cast and you kick. But it's so they made that change in season 2 where like if a mob's going to do a tank buster, it doesn't do like a cast. It just does the tank buster. And it just removed a lot of the noise from the system. And they've continued that. Yeah, we see that with Arakara. We see that with the changes they made to Dawnbreaker. Good. Like, I think we said this a few weeks ago. If they continue the design philosophy of dungeons that was in season 2, they will win. Like, they will just it will just result in a good season. Like, if they can
Yeah.
keep that going with a decent dungeon pool, then it's going to be a great season. And so far, they've got the great dungeon pool. I think we all like these dungeons.
Yep.
And they're seeming to carry forward these design changes that they've done. So, I mean, what is not to be excited about here?
I don't know, because it's even hitting bosses. Like the
Yeah.
final boss of Arakara. The reason I dislike Arakara is I don't dislike the dungeon. I dislike that the entire dungeon was so free until you got to the final boss, and the final boss actually took some thinking, which caused it to be the group killer. And they've made changes to make that better.
Yeah.
There is something that I still hope that they do address, in that when you get dispelled, you can't get hit by your own wave immediately. But outside of that, like, they've made a ton of change. Like, only a certain number of people get the poison now instead of all 5 people. They reduced the damage from the explosion.
Yeah.
Um,
In
so
Loki's fucking up the explosion will not kill you. I wonder what key level it will be that will actually kill you.
yeah.
I don't
Well, the
know.
knockback will fuck you up anyways,
Yeah,
because it'll
no.
knock you out of the
No,
arena.
that's for sure. I mean, it's designed that the thing kills you. So I don't know. So they actually did change the poison wave. So yeah, you said it used to go on all 5 people. Now it's only on 3 people, and they changed what happens when you hit the wave. Because before, basically, if you hit a wave, including your own wave, like if you happen to be running while you were dispelled, you would just immediately run into your own wave and die. Well, they changed
Mhm.
what happens when you hit a wave, where now, instead of doing a massive amount of damage on you up front, it does a little bit of damage on you up front, but it also leaves another dot on you that really hurts. So essentially, it avoids the instant death mechanic of accidentally running into your own wave, and makes it so your healer could probably keep you alive, actually. So, yeah.
It's just going to come down to how bad that's tuned, because if hitting it still means death, it's still going to be annoying as fuck if you can hit your own wave after you get dispelled.
I still don't like the fight, like, from a design perspective. Like, I think, like, in theory, the whole there's going to be this really great big suck in that you're going to have to step in some webs to avoid getting pulled in, like, is a fun concept. I just don't think in execution it actually works. It's like, especially if you're the tank or melee, it is really, really hard, because, like, especially if you're the tank, like, this is coming from me having to tank that season, where you can't pre-move to get yourself in one of the things because the boss moves with you, and then you'll just die because you'll be in the circle still. So you have to, like, identify which one you want to go to, hope that no one takes it, try frantically ping, I'm going to go to this one, and hope that no one runs into it. Like, I died more
Hope you
times
won't
than I
get a
should
boss.
have on that stupid boss. So I still don't love the fight just from a basic design perspective, but yeah, it seems like they've fixed some of the problem points of it. And also, I'm not going to be tanking anymore, so I'll just pre-position and be fine, or I'll do what I do on Monk, which is just transcend right out of there, and it's no problem.
So I think you and I have shown our excitement for the dungeons, and there's a lot more to be said about these dungeons, and I'm sure we'll talk about it in the weeks to come. The fact that Halls of Atonement is making a return, I think, is going to make a lot of people happy. This dungeon, along with Gambit, was some of the highest target count dungeons from Shadowlands.
Yeah.
And if there's anything that people like, it's high target counts, big numbers, big damage, do things quickly. So I think that a lot of people are going to be happy with this season.
You skip? I feel like you skipped a lot of trash between the first boss and the second boss in that dungeon, and I'm a little worried their new True Sight philosophy is going to make it so it's going to be way more difficult to skip a lot of that trash.
Yeah, or they're going to change counts like they did in Necrotic Wake. We'll just have to see.
Yeah, we'll see. They don't like you skipping that much trash, so I would not be surprised if they don't do that. But
yeah, I mean, Halls was a dungeon where before you got to the third boss, you were at like, or before you got to the second boss, sorry, you were at like 85% count or something like that.
Yeah,
so
and then you did the second boss.
That's going to happen.
I think you did the third boss, and then you did that one room where you pulled the entire room at once, right? It's like a mini boss where you just you just pull the entire room and you try to beat the heal check or something. I'm remembering these things as I talk. I bet they changed
ready
that
for the
too.
final boss.
I bet they
Yeah.
changed that too. I bet they don't let you do that anymore. But
Well,
it's a really good dungeon. I also just love the aesthetic of that area. So yeah, I'm for it totally.
so a couple of other things to note about the dungeon rotation before we move on to a couple of the other Mythic Plus things that were announced. Hard mode Tazavesh is returning. I think that's been confirmed.
Yeah.
So that's cool. If you didn't get to do hard mode Tazavesh in Shadowlands, you can do it now. I'm assuming the reward will be the same. You'll get the little gray disc thing. But if not, then maybe we'll have a new reward, and that's cool. But
Well,
hard mode also rewards better gear. So
yeah, I mean, this is kind of them doing the thing they did at the very end of Dragonflight, right? Where the hard mode of the mega dungeon in Dragonflight, I believe, if you like did it with no deaths, it dropped myth track stuff,
Mhm.
and that's interesting. I wonder if they'll repeat that, but I think it will definitely drop hero track stuff. In fact, in one of the interviews, they talked about whether they're considering letting completing the hard mode of Tazavesh be the equivalent of doing a 10 vault in your vault,
Oh, interesting.
which is really interesting because they say the balancing of it is supposed to be equivalent to a plus 10, essentially. Of course, with no time, right? So this is cool. Like we talked about this way back at the end of Dragonflight when they did this for Dawn of the Infinite. I thought that it was a really cool idea to have a non-timed, very challenging thing that existed in the game for 5 players. I think that's a really cool idea. If we don't get our own mega dungeon in this expansion, fine, but we get this one back to try it. I'm interested in doing it for sure. I think it's gonna be fun. We'll see how it goes, but I think it's cool. I think this philosophy is cool and should continue of making challenging 5-man content independent of the Mythic Plus timer.
Yeah, I do think if they ever do bring Mega Dungeons back, they need to bring back the challenge mode. So I'm happy to see them doing this. I also think if they ever like create another Mega Dungeon, which I'm not sure if that's ever going to happen again, I guess we'll wait and see.
It might.
But I think they should have a challenge mode as well, because it like you said, it is nice to have that hard content to do with a smaller group of people, and it's nice to like be able to progress something outside of the normal avenues of progression. Like I go back and I think of like Criterion dungeons in Final Fantasy, where it's like those were a nice way to escape normal dungeons in the game, but also not be raiding. And it's a smaller group of people, so I feel like it kind of fits that same vein.
Yeah, yeah. It is interesting to have like a group of 5 that is struggling to kill a boss, not because of like output or whatever, just because of do we have the correct strategy on this fight? That's not really a
Mhm.
thing that exists in Mythic Plus. Really, it's all about throughput and output, and then those kind of things. The actual boss mechanics of most Mythic Plus encounters are not that challenging. It's not meant to be like smash your head into it until you develop the correct strategy. It's meant to be like, can you execute this flawlessly within a certain amount of time? Which is a mode I like. It is, but I think there's room for this too. And I agree with you. A question for you: if you lived like if it's true that we live in a world now where our options are you can get 2 new dungeons during the course of the expansion, 1 per season, or you can get a mega dungeon, and it's one or the other. You can't get both. Which do you think you would prefer?
2 new dungeons, because that lets them encapsulate all mechanics and all everything, story and everything, into one package to give
Yeah.
to you, instead of like splitting one dungeon arbitrarily in half at
Yeah.
whatever point they feel like they need to do that at.
I think I agree with that. I do like mega dungeons just conceptually. I think it's like a cool idea to have like we're
Yeah.
gonna have this like really big dungeon. It's gonna have like a shit ton of bosses in it. It's gonna take you a while, and it leads to these hard modes and these challenges and things. So I would be a little sad to see those completely go away and just not be part of the game anymore. But if you made me choose, I think I agree with you. I would go with the 2 new dungeons because I do think it's very cool. We're getting a new dungeon this patch. I think that's very cool and very exciting.
Oh, it looks sweet too.
Yeah, it
It's
does.
like it's like a little paradise in ethereal voidland.
Yeah,
It's so sweet.
that's great. That's great.
uh, Other updates about Mythic Plus, Scott. I guess we should dive into those. So I think the thing that I am the most excited for is there will be no longer people sit. Well, There will probably still be people sitting there dead and not releasing. But if you pay attention to the game and you actually like open your eyes once ever, you shouldn't ever question if you're going to release somewhere or not now, because along with the chat message that we got added in season 2, letting you know, or maybe even season 1, letting you know that the graveyard is updated, which is easy to miss. We're actually getting a physical visual representation of a new graveyard, kind of like you would get in Delves, which is awesome. And I am extremely excited for that.
Fuck yes. This is, I mean, like, we literally had the conversation where we looked at Delves and you said, you added this system to Delves. Just pick it up and drop it in dungeons and done. And that's essentially what they're doing, right? It is, you have these waystones that will have a visual representation of you have just unlocked a new respawn point. And if you open the map, at any point, you can see where all the waystones in the map are on, which is the current one you are at. And so what should never happen in this game, ever, is you die and you have to ask the question, where will I respawn when I release? And yet, that is the biggest question that happens in dungeons. Like, it happens all the time. All the time. And that it should not be the case. And it will not be the case anymore. With this, I think it's such a good news. And I think along with this, as kind of part of this, they are reassessing just the checkpoints in Mythic Plus in general, right? They are going back and looking at, does it make sense to have this far of a run back for this? Do we need to add checkpoints along the way? And that's just good news. That's just good news, because the worst feeling in the world is having to run back way too far. Like, I'm looking at U-Haul's origination. Like, they added those shortcuts. I think instead of adding shortcuts built into the dungeons, they should just update the respawn regularly. And I think they're going to do that. Like, Arakar, we have the shortcut little glider thing we take, but I think I would expect Arakar will have waystones in it as you kill bosses that will update where your respawn point is. And frankly, it should.
Yeah, I agree. There's no worse feeling than wiping in a dungeon. And then that gets exacerbated when you wipe in a dungeon and then you have to do a super long walk back, or you have to sit there and watch your character ride something all the way back.
Yeah.
Arakara is one that you talked about. City of Threads is another awful one with that. So yeah, I think that we need to get rid of this idea of you need to take the time to run back in the dungeon, because you've already lost time wiping. Like, you lost the time to just deaths, and then you're going to have to re-kill anything you didn't kill. So yeah, I mean, you wipe at a boss at 3% in pretty much any key level at this point, assuming you have adequate gear for whatever key level you're in, and it's just like,
yeah,
done. Like, there's no going back. And cutting out the run back, I think, could maybe salvage some of those, but it would definitely make it feel a lot fucking better. That's for sure.
Yeah, I mean, the dying and wiping is punishing enough in the system as it is right now without the run back. Like, if the worry is if we take away the run back, there will be no consequence to dying. Of course there is. Not only is it just flat time, especially if you're at a 12 or higher, but yeah, it's loss in DPS. If you wipe, you're starting over. Like, there's plenty of consequences for dying or wiping in the system without adding an absurd run back on top of it. So this reflects that philosophy. And even if it didn't reflect that philosophy, just the fact of like having to physically add an art asset that is a waystone into the dungeon will perhaps make someone go, it's really far away from the last waystone. Maybe we should rethink where we respawn. So great news. I was so excited when I heard this. I was like, fuck yeah, this is just a no-brainer. Of like, I guess I have to like Delves now, because the only reason this happened is because they did it in Delves. So I guess that's point 1 for Delves. Shit.
Scott, can you and I agree on something real quick?
Sure.
Like, it doesn't matter what the dungeon is. And I think maybe it does, because I think there is exactly one instance in which I can think that this is okay. But dungeons in where no matter where you die in the dungeon, you respawn at the beginning, are just inherently bad.
Oh yeah, those suck.
The only caveat to that I can think of is stone vaults. And that's because you come back to the central room after every boss you kill.
Yeah.
So I think that one's okay, but just in general, I think dungeons at which you spawn at the beginning at all times are just inherently bad.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. Priory has checkpoints in it, but you don't unlock the first checkpoint, the only checkpoint in Priory, until you defeated the second boss. So dying on the second boss feels brutal, especially because you skip so many packs in that first area that like the run back where you have to weave around the patrolling packs is just a fucking nightmare. I hope that's changed next season. I really do.
Yeah, if you could just respawn at Dalcry, that'd be nice.
I agree.
But so last change for Mythic Plus. Well, I guess
I added a fourth in there. Sorry.
Yeah, last announced change is there is now a lever penalty that's being applied. Now I don't know how many times you have to leave to get this penalty applied to you. Did they say that?
They have not.
I don't think
they have
really.
There's no details of this system.
Yeah. And essentially what it's going to do, to our understanding, and again, this could be wrong because it isn't actually fully implemented yet, but to our understanding is it will just mark you as like a lever if you leave keys too frequently. And the way to not get that, if you want to leave the dungeon early, is there's going to be like a new give up vote, surrender vote if you play League of Legends. And if everybody agrees, or I don't know if it has to be like a majority agrees, then the dungeon will be considered free to leave, and then you can leave without having that penalty go towards your account.
Yeah.
Now, they have said that you can clear this by doing dungeons without leaving. They haven't said anything about it like timing out or anything like that. So I assume what that means is if you're marked with this, because I'm going to go under the assumption if you're marked with that, nobody's going to invite you to their dungeon, because why would you, unless you're extremely desperate? You're going to have to run your own key. And I don't know if it's going to mark you as a lever for people who sign up to your key too. Like, how bad is this going to screw somebody over, and how like reasonable is it going to be to remove it?
Yeah.
In my situation personally, this doesn't bother me at all because I am very rarely ever the first person to leave a key ever, even if it is one that is going drastically wrong.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know how bad this is going to be to clear.
Yeah, I think there's so many questions with this thing. First of all, I think this is a great idea. I think just trying to implement something like this to solve this problem is good. But yeah, there's so many unknowns and questions and concerns that pop up in this thing almost immediately the second you read about it. Like the first is like, is the simple question of like, how often do you have to leave a key for this to trigger? It's not going to be the first time you do it, right? But is it the third time you do it? Is it the third time you do it within a certain amount of time? And the question is, do they feel that it is beneficial or not beneficial for the system to give you that information, right? Like, so you know at any given point in time, I can leave this key without penalty, but I cannot leave the next one. Because I feel like making that vague is like part of the point, that you feel like at any given moment I could get punished for this, is part of the fear of pushing you into behaving, right? And then yeah, I think what you offered is really great too, is like, if I'm trying to fill my key, why would I ever invite a person with this tag? Ever? Like, the only way I would do it is if I'm incredibly desperate, or they outgear and outscore the key I'm trying to do by so much that I'm willing to risk it. Like, that is the only way. And so there are concerns about that. I think the other concern is like, you feel the key's going to die, you vote to abandon, the vote loses, and you say, okay, fine, I'm just going to go AFK. Right? And so now you've kind of trapped people in a key. And then the other consideration is, if you are the key holder, if it's your key, shouldn't your vote count more than my vote? Because you are the one essentially putting up the risk. The consequences of failing your key does nothing to me, but it lowers your key. So shouldn't your vote count more than my vote? Maybe, but how much more? These are all things that I don't know about. But I think it's a really interesting idea. I love the idea of solving a social problem with a social solution, that like there's no actual gameplay consequences of this. It's just your social record will be tarred. I think
Yeah.
that's a great idea, but yeah, I mean, it's just a lot of questions.
So the other part that I didn't even think about until you were saying something is like, well, you and I have talked about this. How often can you vote to forfeit? Um, can only the key holder be the one to vote to forfeit? Maybe that's a way to solve that.
Mhm.
I don't know. I don't necessarily think that that's correct, um, but then also if you deplete a key and then leave, is that going to be a penalty against you, or is it going to read like if you're in a completion key and then you leave, like does that go against you? Because
Right.
in the
Yeah.
social contract, technically that goes against you. I don't know. I don't know how they're going to handle all of these different scenarios.
Yeah, yeah, because in my mind, once the timer is up, you should be free to leave the key. Like without consequence. Like once you failed the timer, but then yeah, you have people that list a key for completion, and technically you're breaking the contract of that group if you join a group that says completion and you leave. Even if you leave before completion, you've broken the contract of that group. Should that be penalized? That's a little more gray area. And yeah, it's like I don't want a situation where I feel like I have to remain in this key, where I have to waste my 30 minutes of time because I'll get punished for it. Like I don't want that situation, but I also don't want the situation where like people just leave willy-nilly and there's no consequences for them. So I am very wary of a system that could make someone feel like they're being held hostage. But maybe that's like you take the bad consequences with the good consequences. I don't know. I don't know. Do you think like as they've described it without all these questions, do you think this will solve the problem?
I don't know if it'll necessarily solve the problem, but it will let group leaders be more informed,
Sure.
which might solve the problem in and of itself. Um, I I ultimately want to say, like, I think that this is at least a good first stab
Yes.
at trying to implement something here, and I don't think that they're ever going to make it perfect. Um, but I think that having something is better than having nothing in the current iteration.
Yeah.
Now, until that system punishes people for just playing the game normally, which this has a very real chance to do, like you said, if somebody just stays in the key but they AFK, I mean, that's like playing a game of League of Legends with somebody who AFKs.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, in League, you can just report somebody that can be reviewed, yada yada yada. But you don't necessarily have the same tools in Mythic Plus, and I don't know that they can go back and like review like dungeons and shit like that, like they can League of Legends games. So it's not gonna be perfect. I don't know that it can ever be perfect. League's lever penalty system still isn't perfect, and it's been around since God only fucking knows how long now.
Yeah.
So I think that doing something is better than doing nothing as it currently stands.
Yeah.
But no, it's not going to be perfect.
No. Yeah. I mean, I think we will see. I think they tried at the end of season one to do like this. Remember, they just randomly that one week were like, frequent leavers will get a ban or something. Like they did like
Hmm.
a short ban for frequent leavers or whatever. And it's like, well, that came out of nowhere and didn't really solve the problem. And so this is their kind of next swing at this thing. It's probably not going to be their last swing. I don't think they're going to hit a home run on the first one. But yeah, I mean, I think it's just comforting that they recognize the problem and are tinkering with ways to solve it. We'll see. We'll see how it actually plays out. I think one thing that's definitely true is that I don't think it's officially said this, but once one person has left the key, everyone else can leave without consequence. I think it'll work just the same way like dungeon leaving will work in
It
instant
should.
dungeons. Yeah. Um, but yeah, we'll
Well,
see. I don't know.
I don't really have anything else to add about the lever stuff. Like I said, I want it to be very clear that I think that this is going to be a good thing, at least in the current iteration of the game.
Yeah.
So
Anything that
we'll see
tries to
how it
curb
goes.
this problem, which it is a problem, is going to be a win for me. So
Yeah. Well, you added this last one. I don't even know what you're talking about, so you might have to explain it to me a
oh
little
my
bit.
god!
So
So the last thing I wanted to talk about with Mythic Plus is the Shadow Meld potion that's being added to the game. You didn't hear about this?
No, is it going to share a cooldown with damage potions
It
though?
will, yes. Um,
So I still want to be a night elf.
yeah. So this is the hilarious thing. I think I don't remember if it was last episode or the episode before where I basically just said Shadow Meld should be deleted from the game. Um, they're going the opposite way, which is Shadow Meld is so powerful that we're giving it to other people through potions. And so here's the thing. Here's the thing. I think that having utility potions is a cool thing in this game. Like, I think it's a cool thing. And actually, one could argue, and I will make an argument, that you should have a health potion, a throughput potion, and a utility potion. And all of those should be on separate cooldowns. I think that's what the game should do. I think that's fun. It's interesting. You can come up with really fun utility potion ideas, like the Shadow Meld potion. And I think the game should encourage that. At the same time, when a racial ability has become so powerful that your solve is to make it a potion so other races can use it, perhaps it's time to revisit the racial ability.
So here's the thing that I'm thinking. If it is just essentially putting Shadow Meld on a potion, cool. That's fine. Maybe this is an argument not necessarily to look at that racial specifically, but all racials and either get rid of them or something like that. The other part of this, though, is you aren't going to use this potion for the same reason you don't use invis pots in dungeons really much anymore. And the fact of the matter is if you're not using a damage potion on cooldown, you are actively making the dungeon slower unless you get something substantial by not doing so.
Yeah.
And that is why if people want to do skips, they find other creative fucking ways to do it, like their tank pulling shit so far away that you can run by and then they shadow meld or they drop combat some way and then they run to you, or you get a rogue, or you get like mind soothe. Like there is a reason people don't really use invisit pots anymore, and it's because it actively makes the dungeon slower unless you gain something major out of this. So even though this is a thing, you are still going to be incentivized to play a night elf so that you can still use your damage potion.
Well, I mean,
so I agree.
I think the other big thing is they give so many mobs true sight now that like invising past mobs is it's very difficult. Like there are choke points in so many of these dungeons that just have a mob with true sight that requires you to do something like a meld skip that you can't do an invis skip. So, I just like the meta is either going to be you play Night Elf because then you have two Shadow Melds. Ooh, you have your Shadow Meld and then you have your potion. Or you play a Dwarf and then you have a Bleed Removal and a Shadow Meld. Ooh, yay. Look, they're never going to remove racials from the game, I don't think, because I think I think a lot of times in this game they make decisions that are not for the raid players and the Mythic Plus players, but are for the game as a whole. And one of those is the idea that when I pick a Night Elf Druid, that identity matters, and it matters on both words in that statement. It like you have a Druid identity and you have a Night Elf identity, and part of your identity as a race in this game, this is still a role playing game, is that you have racials that do cool, unique things that makes your character unique, and that is for functionality well outside Mythic Plus.
Yeah.
There is an argument, however, that hey, how often do you use Shadow Meld in Raid? Never. Because none of the abilities in Raid can be shadow melded. They've just done that. Like these Raid bosses have been designed so meticulously, and they don't want you to just be able to cheese mechanics via shadow meld that they just make it doesn't work on any of those abilities. And maybe we should look at dungeons, specifically Mythic Plus dungeons, and go, hey, maybe shadow meld just shouldn't work on all this shit anymore. And maybe that's a way of solving it without removing it and without ruining the flavor that races bring to the game. I don't know.
Then everybody just play Dwarf.
Yeah, well, maybe make that, maybe change that. I don't know. Like, it is kind of ridiculous that how, like, I know people don't want to play Dwarf that played, like, fortunately, I mostly like Night Elves, but like, I would love to play other races and like, have fun with different looks. But
fat humans.
Yeah. Man, my fat human druid's gonna get to shadow meld now. It's gonna be awesome. I definitely like the idea of utility potions, and I hope they add more to the game. I don't know, like, you said, is it maybe just a fact that we just don't need combat potions in this game anymore? Like, I don't know, like just having another button you press when you press a cooldown to make you do a little bit more damage. I guess that's fun. Like, is there a risk of now having 3 potion cooldowns instead of 2 potion cooldowns? Like, does that destroy the game in any real way?
So I think that the two things that you just outlined are going to be the only ways that they can solve this to where they actually get people to use these interesting potions. So I don't know if you guys know, but every time we get a new expansion, we get a fuck ton of cool new alchemy potions that you never fucking see.
Yeah.
Nobody ever uses them. They're never going to be used. So the only way to get people to use those is put them on their own cooldown or remove damage pots. Like that's going to be the only way they ever get used. Barring some like super extreme circumstance, like some shit that Echo did in season 3 of Dragonflight or some shit like that, with Dawn of the Infinites. Like
Yeah.
that's just the reality of it. And so like, I think if you want somebody to use these, you either have to add a third potion or you have to remove damage pots, because there is no world, I don't think there is a world ever in which you are going to use a shadow meld potion over a damage potion. And there are very few circumstances where you're even using an invisibility potion over a damage potion at this point. So they have to do something if they want people to actually use these things.
Yeah, and it's like, I mean, do we like damage potions? Like, this expansion, I think everyone is just using the tempered potion. Like, everyone.
Yep.
Is that like a thing we enjoy? Is that like fun that we get to hit our potion button every 5 minutes or whatever it is? Is that good? Is that good fun gameplay? Or can we maybe get rid of that and then look at a way of these potions to do cool new interesting things like invis, like shadow meld, like, I don't know, other fun ideas? Like, wouldn't that be better? I don't know.
I think it would be better, but that's under the assumption that by removing those, you are going to open up doing other things with potions. Now, I can see two arguments to be had here. One argument is damage potions kind of are some very minor form of skill expression, making sure you use them at the right point and you time them at the right points to always have them up for the correct packs and shit
Macro
like that.
into cooldown.
It is one thing. But the other thing that I was going to say is if we have a bunch of utility pots, that is just adding button bloat to your bars. And so for some classes, they don't have a ton of extra buttons to be floating around and playing with. So that could pose another issue as well.
Yeah, I guess, but like, I feel like most of that utility stuff you're not doing in combat anyway. So it's like, oh dear God, am I clicking my invis pot? I clicked it. I clicked it. I don't know.
But a shadow meld you would though.
Yeah, yeah, but
So I
not
don't
all
know.
utility is the same. Yeah, I don't know. That's very possible.
I also don't know how they would go about this and make it not feel like we lost something. Like that was everybody's big fucking cry about the great pruning in the past, is like you just felt like you lost something and it dumbed things down. And to be clear to everybody listening to this podcast, and if you are listening to this podcast, you probably like the retail version of this game. And so you're not one of the people who are like, oh, the rotations are so stupid and they removed everything. Rotations have never been more complex in this game ever. So like, just so we're all on the same page, they have never been more complex in this game, and it's due to all of the shit you have to react to. That's a completely separate rant in and of itself. But I feel like that's going to be the argument, is if they get rid of damage potions, a lot of people are just going to feel like we just lost something for nominal to no gain at all.
What percentage of your damage in a key is the potion?
I feel like that'd be hard to calculate.
It's got to be
do
like,
damage inherently.
it's got to be like It's gotta be like nothing, man. It's not zero, right? And it's not.
Yeah.
It's I don't know, man. It just seems like I feel like there's a better way of doing this, and maybe it's literally just, hey, we'll carve out a new utility slot and you can do fun things, and it can help make routes more dynamic and interesting, and bring some strategy into routing with utility potions, while also you still get to press your I do a little bit more damage button every so often. I don't know.
Sure. Well, I don't have much else to add on this one because like I said, as it currently stands, as sad as I hate to say, this is just not going to be used. Like I can't see a world in which this is used over a damage potion or an invis pot. So
Yeah, I don't know.
that's kind of
I
my
don't know.
current
We'll
thought.
see.
Anything else Mythic Plus we're forgetting about?
No, I think some of the stuff we have to talk about a little bit later ties into it. I think the Reshi wrap will tie into Mythic Plus a little bit, supposedly. Not
Mhm.
sure exactly how, but yeah, I think that's mostly it for Mythic Plus.
Well, let's start talking about the new raid, the new zone, tier sets, and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I'm assuming this will be kind of the last thing that we're going to cover before the end of the show, seeing as you and I ranted for about like 45 minutes, Mythic Plus wise.
I was not ranting. I was excitedly talking about the future of this game and how great it's going to be. I don't call that a
So,
rant.
first things first, we already talked. We're going to Koresh, which is in and of itself awesome. Ethereal shit everywhere. Tazavesh is being spoiler alerts, by the way. This section may have spoilers because Scott and I don't care about spoilers and we read everything that comes through Wowhead. So
Mhm.
if you care, spoiler alert now. But anyways, Tazavesh is being Dollarand to Koresh, so to speak. So we are just taking Tazavesh and we are moving it to a new location, just like Dalaran has been done. Four times at this point? 3 times?
Just 3.
Uh,
The last one did not
so
go well.
so that is kind of where we're at. And that also brings us a new raid with a new final boss, in which I believe Scott called at the very tail end of last episode.
Yeah. It's Dimensius. It's the guy, the OG Void Lord, who we like defeated in a random Burning Crusade quest 20 years ago or so. He's back, and he's big. He's really big. That's the big selling point with this guy. He's bigger than Stormwind, which is like cool. Except, like, obviously we're not gonna interact with that version of the fight. Like, it's gonna be like that's overwhelming, and you're unable to process that much information in the game. So it's like maybe the model will be that big, but you'll be flying around and jumping around to different pieces and yada yada yada. Like, it's fun, it's cool, it looks cool, but that's not really going to be how it works.
Yeah. And the other part of this too is I think that one, he's getting a new model. So just so everybody knows, it looks pretty fucking sick if I do say so myself. But there already has been confirmed, I think, that there will be some flying during the final boss. I don't know if it's been confirmed. We have a friend who said that.
I looked for where he found this information and I couldn't find it. But that certainly would make sense. Like, if you're gonna make a boss that big, you're either gonna just like be inside one small part of the boss for the whole fight, or you're gonna move around. And moving around would indicate flying to me.
Well, just so you know, he does listen to this show every week. So I'm just saying right now, if you fed us wrong information and you're listening, expect an angry message at some point on Discord
Yeah.
in the near future.
Yeah.
So.
You know who you are, you bastard.
So with the raid, Scott, more than just Dimensius, which I think you were pretty pumped to see that it was Dimensius, and you kind of called that last week. So that was pretty cool. We are getting, this is the main thing I want to talk about. And so if we get to nothing else but this for the remainder of the show, I'm very sorry to everybody listening, but we have to fucking talk about it. They have this Void Demon Hunter Council boss fight, which, one, Void Demon Hunters look fucking sick. everything about this seems awesome. They have a rare-ish item, or maybe the only rare item in the raid. They have tier, but they're marked as optional, which, one, what the fuck does an optional boss mean other than you don't need to kill them to progress,
Uh-huh.
but now you do need to kill them. So this is the whole thing we're going to be talking about, because man, oh man, do I have a lot of questions. And I'm honestly a little bit pissed off at the fact that they marked this boss optional, and it just generally doesn't fucking feel optional at all.
So yeah, this is the weird thing about this. This is gonna be really funny because we could have this entire conversation, and then like tomorrow they release a post that clarifies what they meant by that, and it'll just be like, oh, okay. They specifically set out to mark this boss as optional, and then yeah, when you look at the loot table, it has tier on it. I believe shoulders drop from this boss, and yeah, there are special boots that drop from only this boss. One version for each armor type that enhance the Reshi wrap that is going to be your legendary cloak that everyone's going to be wearing. That it makes it better. And so essentially like must have boots, essentially. They're going to be BIS boots for everyone, probably. None of that sounds optional. That sounds very unoptional. And so yeah, maybe the whole what they mean by optional is essentially like you do not have to kill this boss to advance in the raid. And then the question becomes, but why not then? Like, if you're going to put key loot on it, why make it optional? And there's tons of theories floating around about this right now, like tons. And it's very exciting. I actually love that they do this. So yeah, the thing you said at the very beginning of the show and just a couple minutes ago was, this is a council fight. There are 3 demon hunters. One of them is very clearly a Havoc demon hunter. One of them is very clearly a Vengeance demon hunter. And the third one is this weird voidy demon hunter that we've never seen before, that has a bunch of abilities that seem like they would be void demon hunter abilities. And so speculation has run rampant, and it said this is how they're announcing there's going to be a third demon hunter spec. Finally, 10 years later, we're getting a third demon hunter spec. It's going to be a void spec, and this is how they're announcing it to us. I don't know if I'm 100% confident that that's the case. But this would be a really cool way of introducing that. Like, imagine if the unlock for the Void Demon Hunter spec is if you kill the boss on any difficulty, right? So LFR people could do it as well. That would be pretty cool. That would actually be a fun way of introducing, like, you kill this guy and then you learn the secrets of the Void Demon Hunter. Now, the question that comes from that is, okay, well, what is that spec going to be then? Is it just going to be another melee DPS? Okay, sure. Maybe that'll be cool. I don't know. Is it going to be something different? Is it going to be like a range DPS? I've heard people say it's going to be like possible like range DPS. That's interesting, but how would that work? I don't know. And like when you start going crazy with it, it's like, okay, how would the hero talents work? Because right now Demon Hunter has 2 hero talents that each of the 2 specs get, but if you add a third spec, then to do it like the other ones have, you would essentially have to remove a hero talent from one of the 2 specs that actively are using it right now. That wouldn't feel good. So how would you do that? And it's like, this is all very possible, right? But I just don't know. And then maybe the optional part, by the way, is that you need a demon hunter in your raid to fight this boss. The reason it's optional is because you cannot activate this fight unless you have a demon hunter in your raid. That's kind of a cool idea, except you put tier on it and you put these best in slot boots on it. So what if I'm running a 10-man that doesn't have a demon hunter? You just fucked me, actually. So I don't like, I'm so, I'm just like, it's fascinating to talk about and speculate on, but I'm like, what are we doing here?
Yeah. The thought process of like, this is how you unlock a third demon hunter spec would be sick. And also, if they kept it a secret the whole time, would be even more sick. Like, God, that would be fucking awesome.
There's almost 0% chance they're surprise dropping an entire third spec. Like,
correct. Yeah.
Like even with the augmentation evoker, they like said, hey, there's going to be a new spec, and here you get to test it for 3 weeks. Like, we're not just going to surprise you with it. But maybe, I don't know, like after, like I was pretty convinced that all the rumor mongering around augmentation evoker was bullshit and it wasn't real. And then I was immediately proven wrong. And so now I'm just like, I'm kind of in on this theory that there's just going to be a third spec for Demon Hunter. I don't, maybe
Maybe it'll
it's
be a support spec.
that would be so funny. That would be so funny. But maybe it's the type of thing where like we're planting the seeds for the story that ultimately the third spec gets added in Midnight. And like this is just like the opening salvo of how that happens is we encounter these 3 demon hunters, we defeat one of them, and we start moving towards this idea that there's going to be a third spec, and that, but it doesn't actually get released until Midnight. I could see that happening. I don't know. It's wild.
Speaking of, because I don't think we're going to get to this by the end of this show, but Midnight announcement is Gamescom when
Right again.
Scott said it was going to be. So,
I'm so good at this. I'm so good at this.
Everybody should be looking forward to that.
Except when I'm wrong. I'm wrong. I'm wrong so often that the handful of times I'm right, it's just I'm gonna bask in them.
Oh yeah, it feels awesome to be right, and you just kind of ignore the times when you're wrong, right?
Yeah, exactly.
That's
exactly.
the right way to go about it.
So like, I mean, I'm very excited about this raid. I think it looks really cool. But yeah, the big mystery right now is what the fuck do you mean optional, boss? And like, I know all the race to world first conversation is like, do we count this? Do we not count this? I mean, like, the honest truth is the fact that it drops tier and the fact that it drops these BIS boots means that anyone that's seriously competing in the race is going to kill this boss. Just like for the, well, I guess I say for the gear alone, but then like, what if it's like a 100 pull boss? Like, what if it's actually a very difficult boss? At some point, the calculation will become, is it worth spending time getting this boss down, or does it make more sense to move on? Right? Like, I don't know. Like, maybe the reason it's optional is because they're going to tune it ridiculously hard. But then you look at the loot table and you're like, well, that doesn't make sense. The loot table doesn't seem to match the idea that this is going to be an insanely hard boss fight and that's optional in the middle of the raid. So I don't know, man. I don't know.
We do need to determine what Race to World First is looking for, though, because in the past, it's just been kind of generally understood that it's final boss kill, but you can't get to the final boss until you've cleared the whole raid.
Yeah.
So if this is the case where they have determined they're not going to kill this boss, like, is Race to World First raid clear or final boss clear? Because I could see a world in which they kill the boss on heroic, they get the items that they need from it, and then they don't do it on mythic. Like, if it is generally, like, genuinely going to be that hard of a boss to do, like multiple hundreds of pulls, I could see it being skipped in that scenario. I think it's highly unlikely, since it does give myth track level upgrades for tier pieces and stuff like that. But I could see that happening. And then we do need to answer the question, like, what does Hall of Fame mean? Because Hall of Fame means currently it means raid clear. But to my knowledge, this is marked 7 out of 7 for this raid for Hall of Fame, and there's 8 bosses if you count the optional boss. So does it not mean raid clear now? Does like, what the fuck does it mean?
I think they're doing something weird with this boss, and I think it has to do with the Demon Hunter spec. And I think that's why they're holding it and being kind of cagey and weird with it. That has to be the case, because I just don't see how it is otherwise. I think what it's actually going to be, here's what it's going to be, Tevin. It's like when you complete a key and then realize you're missing count. They're going to kill the final boss, but then they're going to have to go back and just really quickly do the Demon Hunter Council boss, and then they win, and that's going to be, yay, we did it.
What if killing this boss does get you a new Demon Hunter spec, and then they use that new spec in the Race to World First?
And it's like tuned so broken that you have to. Yeah.
You take 5 of them.
What if it's not like unlocked? You know how they did like the epic or the legendary weapons weren't unlocked to drop for anyone until it got killed for the first time on Mythic? What if that's how the Demon Hunter spec works? Is like someone has to kill it on Mythic, but then none of the Race to World First guilds are doing it because it's optional, and everyone's like, please, just kill it. Just kill it for me.
We wouldn't even know if it's done like that. Like, if it is like a surprise thing like that, that would be sick. I agree with you. I don't think that's going to happen. I think that they value the testing that people do in the PTR too highly for that. But Man, that would be pretty sick if that's what it was. I didn't
Yeah.
even think of going into the show. So.
Unfortunately, I don't think that's the world we live in. But yeah, wouldn't it be awesome if they managed to pull that one off?
So the next thing about the raid, though, Scott, is the tier sets. And there's two things with these tier sets that I think we need to talk about. One is relatively new information. I think it actually came out today. And again, it is Monday of the time of the recording, Monday the 23rd. So first thing, tier sets are hero talent specific,
Mm-hmm.
which is neat. I hope this works. I read through some of them, and a lot of them, from what I read, just sound awesome. Like the fucking Guardian Druid one is for the Elun's Chosen is just fucking sick.
Yeah.
Like there are so many cool thematic things going on in these tier sets, and I am all for it.
It's kind of a really clever way of making the exact same amount of tier sets as you normally would, but then also you've given everyone two chances at getting a good one, right? Like they're still making 39 tier sets. Like it's the same amount, but we've just now like a resto druid, I can pick between two different tier sets. And it's like, so if one of them's bad, if one of them sucks, it's like, well, it doesn't matter as much because if the other one's good, then I'm chilling. Right.
Mhm.
It's a really fun idea. And it is an idea that like, it felt like they were going to do that. And we were a little surprised they didn't do that in season one. I think the tier sets in season one were just like, very, very boring, but also just like increases Moonfire and also Thrash. It's like it tried to do a thing where it increased both equally, but it was also entirely passive. And then season two, they tried this new thing with the role based tier sets, which I think ultimately I think didn't work. I didn't hate them as much as I thought I was, but like they also, at least from a healing perspective, they were also almost entirely passive and didn't change my gameplay at all. And I think the tier sets are the most fun when they do force you to change up your gameplay a little bit. And so far of the ones I've read from a healing perspective, it's 50-50. Some of them will cause me to play differently and some of them will not. I think the result of that is kind of how active or passive your hero talent is. If you have a very passive hero talent, then your tier set connected to that hero talent is probably going to be pretty passive too. I'm looking at you, Wild Stalker Druid. It's like, oh, your blooms do more. Cool. But if your hero talent is a bit more active, like Oracle Dispriest is, it's a very active hero talent, then your tier set is also very active, and that's pretty cool. So yeah, I mean, I think what it does is it puts even more power into your hero talent than was before. Like I think already a lot of classes right now, a lot of their power is like focused on the hero talent. This expansion, and I think this just kind of doubles down on that. So like just a lot of your output as a DPS player, as a tank, as a healer is going to be attached to that hero talent. Which, I mean, that's not a bad thing, right? I mean, like, it's probably a temporary thing in this expansion where as they move away from the hero talent expansion, maybe they smooth that out a little bit. But
yeah,
I think it's a fun idea. I like that they're kind of continuing to try to explore and see how they can keep doing tier each season, but making it new and interesting. And I think it also allows them to make bad ones. Like this is such a cynical take, but it's like every season there's like tier sets just kind of suck, right? And if you play that spec, you're like really pissed off about it. But if one of them sucks, but the other one's like awesome, maybe you complain about that less because hey, at least I still get an awesome one.
Yeah, I'm very excited to see what they do here. I like them toying around with things, so I like that this is different.
Yeah.
I bitched a lot about the role based tier sets because in the first iteration in which we got them, it seemed like it was going to be just stock standard. Do X to get X buff, spend X buff with Y, and for the most part, kind of is how it shaped out. And so I was pretty annoyed by that. But making them solely centered around your hero talent, which is a very deliberate thing that you choose, makes it have to be a very deliberately thought out tier set, which I like. I like this direction they're going, and I hope that I like the tier sets as they're implemented. Things can look good on paper, but not be that great. And I've been caught in that trap a few times in the past, so I'm reserving judgment until they're implemented, until I decide if I overall like this or not. But
Yeah.
I think that the premise is a very good idea.
Yeah, I agree. I'm still really fascinated how they move forward in the game next expansion.
Yeah,
Like after like life after hero talents, I just want to know. I just really want. We're gonna have to wait another month and a half or so, but I just really want to know what the game looks like in the world after hero talents. But we'll see.
We'll find out at Gamescom.
Yeah.
So one last thing on hero or tier before we probably wrap up the show and continue on this next week. I don't know if you saw this or not yet, Scott, but dinars are returning, cartel chips, whatever you want to call it. They are returning in season 3, and they are going to let you roll on tier with them as well. So what Wowhead has said in their article is this is going to allow you to gamble essentially for tertiary stats on your tier.
The thing that you can roll tertiaries on is the curio that drops from the final boss that you can exchange for tier.
Oh,
you used to be able to
interesting.
You used to be able to just exchange that right at the vendor for the tier piece, and so it could never get tertiaries on it. But now it's going to give you the right clickable item that you can roll. So basically, what it gives you is you can continue to roll on the curio even after you're fully tiered up to get a chance at tertiaries.
So curio, not dinars.
Correct. I don't think they've said anything about whether dinars are coming back yet.
Okay. Yeah, that is completely where I misunderstood then. So if it's the curio, and I probably just misread that, to be completely honest with you, because I was super hyped to read that you could roll on tier with shit.
Uh-huh.
If it's the curio, that makes a lot more fucking sense, because it's not necessarily gambling at the vendor, but it's, if it drops with a tertiary that you want, you can just go turn it in and then you get that tertiary in your tier. So no, that makes way more sense. I appreciate you clarifying, and it is 100% me just speed reading Wowhead and reading it incorrectly. So.
I think the only thing I don't like about this is, like, if you're in a guild group, like, one of the nice things is once people have started to get tier, if you're still missing pieces, like, no one's going to be rolling against you on those curios. And now if you can possibly get a tertiary on it, maybe everyone keeps needing on them. I don't know. I think
if you're in a guild group, tell them to fuck off.
Yeah, I mean, true. Definitely true.
But it does make it very interesting. Like, what happens when you get a final boss curio that drops with leech on it, your first kill of the boss? Like, you're almost assuredly giving it to your healer, right?
So I don't know if the curio itself is going to have the tertiary on it. My understanding is you turn the curio in for a on-use item that synthesizes a tier piece for you, and when you do that, like any other piece that drops, it will roll for a chance at a tertiary there. I think is how it works. So I don't think the curio will say this curio has leech on it. Yeah.
Okay.
I think it'll just look like a normal curio, but right now you exchange the curio for the tier item itself. Now you're going to exchange the curio for essentially the piece that would drop in the raid, right?
Like in the raid.
Yeah. Yep. Which could, which could give you a chance at tertiaries. I don't know what the chance is, but I don't know how much you're going to play that game, but it's a nice change for sure.
Yeah. Well, it's definitely interesting because it's the only way that you can really get tertiaries on tier is to have gotten that tier multiple times from a boss and then open it and then, gamble whether you're going to get it or you get it from your vault.
You can catalyze too. If you catalyze a piece that has a tertiary on it, it'll keep it. Yeah. There's multiple ways, but adding another, like giving that item a use to your guild after everyone has tier is cool. Like you're going to keep killing this boss every week, but everyone has 4-piece already. And so that item just goes to waste. Now it will actually have some purpose that you could at least try to roll the dice for some tertiary stats.
Yeah, completely agree. Well, like I said, completely appreciate the clarification there, because the way that I was reading this was that you're going to get dinars and you're going to have to spend your random fucking dinars on tier.
That would be wild. That would be
which
so
I thought
wild.
was meaning we're going to get more dinars going into the season. And then I was going to go on a whole ass fucking rant about that. But yeah, no, completely misunderstood what was being said there.
Do you
appreciate
think
the clarification.
Do you think we're going to get dinars this season? Because I kind of think
sure fucking hope so.
I kind of think we're not. I kind of think after the kind of shit show that was the implementation of this system this season, I think they're going to be like, we're just going to, just take it back and reassess, and we'll have news for you. But maybe they do. I don't know. We'll see.
I hope they do, and I hope that it's implemented in a better way. Like sooner, I hope that it is thought out more, and maybe their gear like it was in the season 4 of Dragonflight, where you can just upgrade it all the way, rather than buying it at a specific track.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. I hope so, but I don't know. I'm not holding my breath because, like you said, don't think it was necessarily well received this go around. So could just be something where they're like, either back to the drawing board on this one or scrap it. We've got too many other fucking things that we're needing to worry about right now. Let's not even bother.
Go.
So, all right. Well, that somewhat incorrect tangent out of the way. I don't think that there's much else for today that we really need to cover. The first thing that I want to start off with next week, if you guys are planning to listen in next week, which you should be if you're not,
you better,
is I want to talk about this new quote unquote legendary cloak / amulet item that we're getting, because it seems like the way that they've been explaining this is it is more than just the regular like amulet circlet or disc belt thing, but also it's not like a full on grind. So yeah, that's what I want to pick up next week's episode with, because I think that there's a lot to unpack there, and I'm hopeful that they release a little bit more information over the next week.
Yeah, I think that's a great place to start next week. I will tell you that I am excited for it in a way I have not been excited for any of those other borrowed power systems. So that's maybe a preview.
It's also coming out at the beginning.
Yeah, I think that's one of the biggest changes that I like. But also much more. And I think, yeah, over the next week, we'll kind of learn more on how it works, because they've said, well, we'll talk about this later, but I think by the time this episode is out, Mythic Plus testing will have started, raid testing will have started, and we'll get to see these things in action against stuff that actually hurts. Whereas right now, there's really nothing to do in the PTR that can actually hurt you at all. So right. Yeah, we'll see.
All right. Well, I don't have much else. Is there anything else that you want to cover before we wrap up this week's show?
No. We'll bring it all back in next week with, I'm sure, a bunch of the new news, as probably a new PTR build happens as well sometime this week.
All right, and I vow to read my Wowhead articles better. So
I was like, you like said that they're bringing the dinar back, and I was like immediately like Googling. I was like, did I miss this? I didn't hear this.
Nope, just incorrect. All right, guys. Well, as you can tell, Scott and I are extremely excited for the things coming in season 3, and we still haven't even fucking touched on all of it. So there's going to be more to talk about next week. But my question for you is, what are you most excited for? And it could be anything, even shit we didn't cover this week on this show. So please, as always, leave a comment. But you can contact us at yellingintothevoidwow@gmail.com. YouTube is at yellingintothevoidwow, and Twitter and Blue Sky are both at intothevoidwow.
Also, make sure you subscribe to this podcast so you don't miss a single second of it. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, and pretty much, and I say pretty much, just literally everywhere else in the world that the podcasts are. We're all over it. We're all over it, man. Tevin, this is
Well,
the void patch, and we are the
this
void
is the void
podcast.
patch. They should have named this patch Yelling into the Void instead of Ghosts of Koresh, although that name is pretty fucking
We would have sued them into the fucking earth. No, Ghosts of Koresh is actually like a pretty badass.
It's a badass name. It for sure is a badass name. So I can't complain too much. But as always, guys, like I said earlier, please consider liking, subscribing, and commenting on the YouTube video. All of that helps us get more exposure and lets us continue to make the content and get introduced to new people. So if you like what we're doing here, or if it's just to tell me to shut up and read better, please go leave a comment in the description, and we will definitely read and respond to those that we can. So I appreciate it, guys. And as always, we'll just be over here yelling into the void.
Yelling into the ghosts of Koresh. Ooh. Ooh. The ghosts.